We've all felt motivated at some point in our lives, maybe to learn a new skill, to pursue a long-term goal, to meet a deadline, or to become a better version of ourselves. Sometimes that motivation feels like a fire lit under us, pushing us to take action. Other times, it's quieter, like a gentle pull from within, guiding us toward something that feels meaningful, even if no one else sees it. But how often do we actually pause to ask the deeper question, why am I doing this? Is it because I genuinely care about it? Because it excites me, challenges me, fulfills me in some way? Or is it because I'm expected to? Because I want recognition, rewards, or approval? This is where we begin to see the difference between two powerful forces that shape our actions every day: intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. One comes from a place deep inside you, a sense of purpose, curiosity, joy, or alignment with your values. The other comes from the world around you: praise, grades, money, validation, or the fear of judgment. Intrinsic motivation, when you are the reason. Intrinsic motivation is one of the most quietly powerful forces in human life. It's the reason some people keep practicing even when no one's watching, keep showing up when there's no deadline, and keep growing even when no one's asking them to. It's not driven by money, status, likes, grades, or praise. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need an audience. It simply is. And it begins from within. You feel it when you lose track of time doing something that lights you up inside, when you're so immersed in a task that the world fades away, when your heart beats a little faster, not from pressure, but from passion. That's intrinsic motivation. It's what drives a painter to return to the canvas night after night, not for a gallery showing, but because the colors help them say what words never could. It's what makes a child ask endless questions about stars, insects, or dinosaurs, not for a test, but because wonder is alive in them. It's why a person trains for a marathon, not for the medal, but for the feeling of becoming someone they never thought they could be. You read, not to show you're smart, but because your soul is hungry for knowledge. You journal not for someone to find your words beautiful, but because writing clears the fog in your mind. You play music, code, paint, explore, meditate not because someone told you to, but because something in you needs to. And that's the beauty of intrinsic motivation. It's not dependent on the outcome. You don't need a certificate. You don't need applause. You keep going even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when it's lonely, because you're not doing it for anyone else. You're not even doing it for a result. You're doing it because it feels right, because it aligns with who you are. Intrinsic motivation is what turns effort into meaning. It transforms routine into ritual. It's what makes a task feel sacred, because it's not about what you get. It's about who you become through doing. In a world that constantly measures success by external markers, by how many followers you have, how much money you make, how impressive your resume looks, intrinsic motivation invites you to measure success differently. Not by how loudly the world claps, but by how deeply your soul responds. Extrinsic motivation, when rewards drive you. Extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is rooted in the outside world. It's the drive that comes not from your inner curiosity or joy, but from the rewards, expectations, and consequences set by others. It's the motivation to act in order to get something, or to avoid something. You work overtime to get a raise, not necessarily because you love the work, but because the paycheck represents security or success. You study not because the subject fascinates you, but because you're terrified of failing. Or you crave that applause as proof you're good enough. You post content online not to express yourself, but because the dopamine hit of likes and comments makes you feel seen, if only for a moment. There's nothing inherently wrong with extrinsic motivation. In fact, it plays a huge role in how we function as individuals and societies. It helps us show up for responsibilities, meet external goals, and develop discipline. It teaches us to operate within systems, schools, workplaces, relationships that often require some kind of measurable output. Sometimes, extrinsic motivation is what gets us moving when we don't feel like it. It's the reason we wake up early for a job we don't love. It's what helps us build habits like exercising, saving money, or learning a new skill because we're chasing a result or avoiding a consequence. And let's be honest, we all need that kind of push from time to time. But here's where the danger lies when we start depending entirely on external validation to keep going. When we live in a constant loop of, what will people think? What do I get from this? Or what happens if I fail? Because the truth is, external rewards are fragile. They change. They fade. They move the goalposts. You get the job. And suddenly, you need a better one. You get the likes. And now you need more. You get the approval. But it never feels like enough. And what happens when the applause stops? When the paycheck isn't worth the burnout? When the gold star doesn't show up? Will you still show up? That's the problem with relying solely on extrinsic motivation. It makes your progress conditional. Conditional on outcomes, on people, on circumstances. And when those vanish, so does your drive. Intrinsic motivation is what keeps the flame alive. Sometimes we start something because we want the reward, and along the way, we fall in love with the process. Sometimes we need a deadline to begin, but then we find meaning in the doing. The goal isn't to reject external rewards, it's to not be ruled by them. The real power lies in knowing the difference. In using extrinsic motivation as fuel, but letting intrinsic motivation steer the wheel. Because when your reasons are rooted in something deeper than praise, you become unstoppable. Extrinsic motivation can be the spark. Intrinsic motivation is what keeps the fire burning long after the spark of external reward has faded. Let's take a simple example. Imagine someone who begins running because they want to lose weight. That's extrinsic motivation. The goal is clear, measurable, and external. They lace up their shoes not because they love running, but because they want to see the number on the scale drop, to fit into a certain outfit, or to meet a deadline set by an event or a person. It's a destination-driven effort. At first, it's hard. Every morning feels like a battle. The alarm clock rings early. The legs are heavy. The mind resists. But they push through because they're chasing the goal. And maybe, for a while, that's enough. But then something starts to shift. One morning, they step outside and notice the stillness of the world just before sunrise. The way the air feels softer, quieter. The rhythm of their feet hitting the pavement becomes meditative. They realize they're not just running to change how they look, they're running to reconnect with how they feel. Their mind becomes clearer. Their breath becomes deeper. The tension that used to live in their chest begins to ease. And now they run not just to lose weight, but because running makes them feel alive. They no longer need a goal to keep going. They no longer need the praise, the compliments, or the external. You've changed. They've already changed internally. The shift has happened. What began as a chase for a result has become a relationship with the process. And that is the beauty of intrinsic motivation. It transforms temporary effort into lasting devotion. It turns discipline into desire. It replaces pressure with presence. Because now, even if the scale doesn't move, even if no one notices, even if no reward ever comes. How to cultivate intrinsic motivation. Find personal meaning in what you do. Don't just ask yourself, what do I need to do today? Start asking the deeper question, why does this matter to me? Because it's easy to get caught up in the checklists, the tasks, the deadlines, the expectations. We wake up and dive straight into doing. But if we never pause to connect our actions to our values, our days can become mechanical. Our motivation begins to drain, not because we're lazy, But because we've lost our why, finding personal meaning doesn't mean every task has to feel magical. It means looking beneath the surface and asking, what does this work represent to me? Who am I becoming by doing this? How does this align with the life I want to live? You might be working a job you don't love, but perhaps it gives you the resources to support your family or the freedom to explore something greater. That matters. You might be studying something that feels dry right now, but it's building the foundation for a dream you've carried quietly for years. That matters. You might be showing up to exercise, not because it's fun every day, but because it's an act of self-respect. That matters deeply. Focus on growth, not just outcomes. It's easy to get caught in the chase for results. We all want to succeed to hit the goal, land the opportunity, prove something to ourselves or others. But when we measure our progress only by the final outcome, we miss the quiet, powerful transformations happening along the way, instead of always asking, did I win? Or did I get there yet? Try asking, what am I learning as I go? How am I growing through this process? Because growth doesn't always look like a straight line. Sometimes it looks like confusion before clarity, failure before breakthrough, stillness before movement. You might not have reached your big goal yet, but maybe you've learned how to be more patient with yourself. Maybe you've discovered a new strength you didn't know you had. Maybe you're slowly replacing self-doubt with self-trust. And that matters just as much, if not more. When you focus only on outcomes, motivation becomes fragile. If you don't get the job, the client, the grade, the applause, you might feel like it was all for nothing. But when you focus on growth, every step holds value, even the setbacks, even the slow days, even the moments that feel like nothing is changing because something is changing inside you. Stop over-comparing yourself. In a world where everyone's life is on display, filtered, captioned, curated, it's easier than ever to compare your journey to someone else's, their success, their timeline, their highlight reel, and slowly, almost without realizing it, you begin to question your own path. Am I behind? Should I be doing more? Why does it look so easy for them? Comparison, if left unchecked, can become a quiet thief. It steals your joy. It clouds your clarity. And worst of all, it silences your own voice. When you live constantly looking sideways, measuring yourself against other people's achievements, you stop listening to your own inner compass. You start chasing goals that don't even belong to you. You say yes to things that don't light you up and no to things that actually do. You begin shaping your life around expectations, not around authenticity. But here's the truth. No one else is living your life. And no one else carries your exact dreams, your past, your values, your potential. So why would their timeline define yours? Why would their version of success be the only one that counts? And you realize some of your deepest joy might come from the things the world doesn't always reward. Quiet mornings, small breakthroughs, private progress, peace of mind. Letting go of comparison doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you start growing in your own direction. It means you stop sprinting in someone else's race and start walking your own path, even if it's slower, quieter, or looks different than what the world celebrates. Because the truth is, the more you try to be like others, the further you drift from your truest self. But the moment you stop trying to match their pace, their life, their expectations, you come home to your voice again. You come back to your values, and from that place, real motivation can rise, pure, steady, and deeply yours. Make the process the reward. We live in a world that's obsessed with outcomes. We're always chasing the finish line, the end result, the final goal, the moment when we can finally say, I did it. And there's nothing wrong with wanting success, accomplishment, or achievement. But the problem is, when we tie our worth only to the outcome, we miss out on the richness of the journey itself. What if the process the way we get there was the real reward? What if we could learn to find joy, satisfaction, and meaning not just in the destination, but in each step, each challenge, each moment of progress? When we're constantly focused on the end result, we race through life without truly experiencing it. We're always waiting for the next thing to happen. We think, when I get the promotion, then I'll be happy. When I hit that goal, then I'll feel worthy. When I finish this project, then I can rest. But this kind of thinking keeps us in a state of perpetual striving. It keeps us on a treadmill of not yet, always feeling like we haven't quite earned it, that we're always just a little bit behind. What if, instead of constantly chasing the finish line, we started enjoying the path we're on? What if we embraced the process, the learning, the growing, the little wins along the way? What if we made the effort itself feel worthwhile, regardless of where we end up? This doesn't mean we stop setting goals. It doesn't mean we abandon ambition, but it means that the pursuit becomes as valuable as the outcome. It means we take time to appreciate the sweat, the struggle, the lessons, and the victories that happen along the way, even the small ones, the ones that seem invisible to others. When we can learn to love the path, we stop feeling like we're only worthy of happiness. Once we've achieved something, we realize that each day, each action, each step forward makes us worthy of celebration, regardless of the outcome. We understand that the journey is what shapes us, what teaches us, and what ultimately brings us the most lasting satisfaction. When you start to find joy in the process, you stop needing the external rewards to feel complete. You stop relying on applause, recognition, or external validation to feel that your work matters, because you know deep down that the work itself, the effort, the dedication, is where the real reward lies. And even if no one notices, you can still feel fulfilled. Even if the goal is far off in the distance, you can find peace and pride in every step you take toward it. Imagine a life where you don't wait for the finish line to give you permission to celebrate yourself. Imagine waking up every day knowing that the process, the act of creating, learning, growing is enough to make you feel fulfilled and worthy right now, in this moment. When you can learn to love the path, you stop needing to be finished to feel complete. You realize that you're already worthy, already on the right path, already enough. And in that realization, you find a deep, lasting motivation that doesn't rely on external milestones. It's intrinsic. It's yours. And it keeps you going long after the finish line fades from view. The final question: are you running because you want to, or because someone told you to? Take a look at your life today and ask yourself, who am I really doing this for? What am I truly chasing? Pause for a moment. Really think about it. In the hustle of daily life, we often forget to ask the most important question: why am I doing this? Maybe you began your journey because of external pressure, the weight of expectations from your family, society, or the relentless demands of the world around you. Maybe you started because of a desire for rewards, recognition, money, titles, or some other external validation. And that's okay. We all have moments where external forces guide us. But here's the truth: the longer you rely solely on those external motivators, the easier it becomes to lose touch with the reason you started in the first place. But here's the good news: you can always reconnect with yourself. You can rediscover that spark inside of you, the deep, personal motivation that isn't reliant on applause, approval, or the expectations of others. You don't need to wait for someone to tell you that you're doing enough. You don't need external deadlines, validation, or rewards to tell you that you're making progress, because the most powerful motivation comes from within. Imagine a life where you don't need to be pushed by anyone, where the fire inside you is strong enough to propel you forward, even when no one is watching, even when the rewards are delayed, even when the world isn't cheering you on. When your motivation is deeply rooted in your values, your passions, and your personal growth, you move forward because you want to, not because you have to. You wake up every day with purpose, driven not by the need to prove yourself to others, but by the desire to fulfill your own potential. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's standards and start creating your own. Because when motivation comes from within, you don't need someone to light your fire. You are the fire. You are the force that keeps you moving, the spark that fuels your growth, the energy that sustains you through challenges. And that fire doesn't burn out. It only grows stronger, brighter, and more resilient as you move closer to becoming the person you are always meant to be. You don't need external validation to feel worthy. You don't need someone else's approval to feel like you're enough, because when the motivation comes from your heart, no one else can take it away. You have everything you need to keep going, to keep evolving, to keep rising. You are the fire, and nothing can extinguish that.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.